Well, good morning, YouTube. All right, guys, in yesterday's video, you saw us working with the hitch, and hopefully today we're going to fix our wallered out hole problem. Now, last night you saw that I was able to get the hitch cut, and then I went ahead and sanded all the edges down, shot it with some spray primer real quick, and repainted it black so it looks nice and pretty now. Last night I searched through my shop for scrap metal and I was not able to find the tubing that I needed to fit over that 5/8 bolt and to fill our hole in the hitch, nor was I able to find any like small coupon pieces for the weld plates. So this morning the weather was pretty crappy, so I decided to go run all my errands while it was raining. And as you saw in that earlier clip, I went to Interstate Welding and Steel Supply, which is our local supply house. Local guy owns it, and it's a pretty nice place. And there's a guy, Danny, that works in the back, and Danny is always so helpful to me. You know, I went to just go get a couple pieces of metal, and I had to have him tack weld a piece of aluminum for the awning that it actually broke. One of the feet came off the pole, so he welded that up for me real quick. And I fully intended on just buying the coupons, or you know, just little pieces of scrap metal that I could cut into coupons myself, drill the hole in them so I could put the tubing in there that I wanted to make these gusset plates basically for the hitch. I found the material that I needed, and Danny, being the great guy that he is, says, "Hey, you want me to just go ahead and punch the holes in there for you?" And I was like, well, that would definitely be easier than me drilling the holes, so sure, why not? Even though I really only needed to make 2 plates, the piece of scrap that we found was big enough to make six plates. So he actually stamped the 6 holes in it, and then he went over to the shear and he just sheared them all to make all the little plates that I needed. And you know, it was worth the 10 or 15 bucks that it cost me in labor for that, because I would have spent probably an hour, maybe more, trying to cut those and drill them and clean them all up and make them look nice. And man, he just did it in no time, and it looked really, really amazing. The power of the machines that they have there. We're talking a 1/4 inch thick piece of plate, and it punched a 7/8 hole in it like it was nothing. Just amazing, the power of the machines. I look back at all the stuff that I do with handheld tools and not the right equipment, and man, if I had the right equipment, the right shop, I could probably make some pretty cool stuff. Now, I probably could have had him cut the tubing to length as well, but at the time I wasn't exactly sure how long I wanted to make them. I am limited on my overall dimensions so that the pins still fits if I go with the pin. Now, if I go with an actual grade 8 bolt, I can pretty much go as long as I want. All right, guys, well, that's enough jabbering. I'm gonna go change into some uglier clothes, and we're gonna get to welding and fabricating. All right, guys, so basically I got this pipe here from the store, and it has a 5/8 inside diameter. Well, almost. It's a 5/8 inside diameter except for where the weld seam is, so I'll have to clearance that just a little bit before I put it together. And as you can see here, I went to Goliath and I made sure that it fit through the holes. So the outside of this is just shy of 7/8. It's a little bit bigger than 13/16, but not quite 7/8, so it's right in between. So basically I'm cutting sections of that about 3/4 of an inch. So I got set up here on the chop box. Of course, this hasn't been cleaned up yet. Little slag. But once it's all cleaned up, get nice little 3/4. Whoa. We get nice little 3/4 of an inch sleeves that the bolt will fit through, and it will fill the hole in the hitch receiver. All right, guys, basically the wall on the receiver is 1/4 inch thick, which is the same as this. So this is going to simulate our receiver wall. Here is our bushing that we've manufactured, and that will fit right down in there, as if this were the receiver wall. So this is actually going to go through all the way to the plate. So when we're done with this, that space will still be there. Now this piece here, you see I've beveled it just slightly. This is going to sit right on top of here like so. Now this will get welded to this. And then when it's all said and done, it will have a reveal like that on the bottom. And that protrusion that's going to be left over is what's going to go into the sidewall of the receiver hitch. And now our pin or our bolt will no longer just be beating on the wall of the receiver hitch. One, it's going to fit tighter, there's going to be less movement. But now, instead of 1/4 of an inch, we're going to have 3/4 of an inch, give or take. I might have to grind these down a little bit depending on what the overall distance is on the pin or whatever bolt we can find. But I should have an inch to play with here. So by me making this 1/2 inch thicker on each side should work out perfect, and it'll actually be a 3-inch overall, 3.5 inch overall dimension, which a lot of hitch pins will accommodate nowadays because most new trucks come with a 3-inch receiver. All right, guys, remember what we're trying to do is stop the boogering of that wall. So with that 1/4 inch thickness, when the pin is in there and the trailer is moving back and forth, you want to get this 1/4 inch here that's stopping that wear, stopping to go through. Now, this isn't going to strengthen the pin strength, because no matter what, the shear strength of the pin is still going to be the same. And if the hitch were to pull out and shear the pin, none of this is going to matter. This is really there to stop it from wallering out that hole. So now, instead of it just being a 1/4 inch, we get our sleeve on there. And then we have 3/4 of an inch. Now look at how much more surface area from that to that that's going to carry the load. All right, so is everybody picking up what I'm laying down? Good, because I'm going to go get the welder set up. We're going to burn these in. All right, guys, so I got the first one welded, and I wasn't happy with it at all. I tried to weld it on my vise, which is up on a bench, and that one particular bench I've got set up extra tall because it's where I do a lot of work where I don't want to be bent over working on it. So I was trying to weld it right up here. And of course, right now this area is a mess. Talon's got this LS conversion 5.3 that he's working on, which is probably going to go in his Caprice. Now, if you want more on that, stay tuned, because I believe he is recording most of the steps. This will actually be his very first engine build on his own. I'm consulting a little bit and helping out, but he is taking the lead. He's doing all the work, and it's kind of nice, doing the whole father-son thing, being able to help him when he needs it. But anyway, I wasn't happy with the way it welded. It took me a little bit to play with the welder to get it set up right. So, I figured I'd sacrifice one, and that's why I bought enough material to make more than one. Also, it was just too high. My position wasn't comfortable. So this is what we're going to do now. Steel plate we were working with yesterday out of the back of the truck. The other side is where we have all of our drawings for the hitch plate. And I ground a clean spot for the ground, and I've got everything set up here now ready. Also, I wasn't happy with the bevel on the first piece. So these I beveled a lot more, probably 2/3 of the way through, so that I've got a little bit more of a canyon, so to speak, to fill. That way we get less pile up on top. And I also made sure to clean the parts really, really good. And I know that I am not a welder, but this is one thing I see a lot of novice welders make a mistake, is they don't clean their parts. Now, most steel comes with a coating on it to stop it from rusting when it's just sitting on a shelf. And if you get that off, it will weld much better. If there's paint, grease, oil, anything like that, you want to remove it from the surface. And I know some will argue that MIG welding is hot enough that it burns through everything. And truth is, it probably does. But if you start with a clean surface, you're most likely going to end up with a better result. Again, I'm not a welder. I can weld a little bit. This is not a teaching channel, just telling you my experiences. If you guys want to learn how to weld, watch somebody other than me. Anyway, I believe I've got the welder set up where I need it to be. I've got my material set up the way I want it to be. So I think we're going to try to burn this one. I'm going to try to set the camera up so you can see what we're doing. I'm kind of glad you didn't watch the first one because it was bad. Well, guys, that is still ugly. Terribly ugly. Well, guys, definitely a little bit more challenging than I thought it would be. Like I said, I am not a welder. And I don't question the strength of these. Yeah, they're not pretty. But keep in mind, I'm going to grind that top down a little bit because they've got to be a little bit narrower. I just wanted to leave myself a good amount of material to weld to. And then we'll thin them out and flatten them. And it should look all okay when it's said and done. All right, guys, I know. Definitely not my prettiest work. But it's going to do the job. Once I ground it down, as you can see, the surfaces are pretty flat, pretty smooth. And remember, the load on this, the weld isn't holding the load. It's just holding everything together. The load is all going to be lateral on this. So the weld, I mean, I could have tacked them and it would have been fine. So, huge difference though. All right, guys, and there's the difference. Where before we had a 1/2 inch, now we've got all of this. So I measured it. We went from a 1/2 inch of engagement on the pin to almost 1 1/4 inches. And here I'm measuring it. We still have plenty of room to fit between the receiver without grinding it down any further. So if you look here, I've still got just over, right there is pretty even, just over 3 1/8. The outside of that tube that is on Goliath, the actual receiver, is only like 2 1/2. So I've still got plenty of room there. I could have actually left them thicker if I wanted to, but it just wasn't going to be necessary. And that way the locking pin will still go in there. Guys, we've only got a little bit of daylight left, so we're going to run up to Goliath and we're going to test fit this to see if it's all going to work the way I planned. And there are a couple things I thought about that may complicate the situation, but we'll see. All right, guys, so you just saw it with a bolt in it, and this bolt is now not long enough to fit through it, but that's not a big deal. The pin fits through just fine, but it's not holding it quite as tight as I like, so I'm probably just gonna go get a longer bolt so I can snug this down. Now, eventually these get welded here, and there's still plenty of room here. So doing my math, I wasn't calculating for putting this hook back on here, and another reason I like to bolt it that way, that hook is a little steadier and tighter on there. Now, like I said, normally I would weld those to the side of that, but the one on the other side that you can't really see is sitting a little bit crooked. And that is because the ring for the chain is in the way. Now I can cut that off and straighten it out, but then I don't have a place to put the ring without having to make something else up. Just not so sure that's the best thing to do. So I don't want to weld it to the receiver just yet, because remember we talked yesterday about re-sleeving that receiver to make it thicker and stronger. If you remember, I've got this piece of tubing right here that we're going to slide over it. Well, if I weld those plates to the side, this will no longer fit. So I think for now we're going to use the bolt to hold it together. We're still going to get all that pulling strength. We've still cleaned it up. We've still taken all the play out of it. It doesn't necessarily have to be welded on there. The bolt will draw everything, keep it nice and snug and nice and tight, and that should be fine, at least until we get home from this next trip, and then we can have the other plate cut out and all welded in place and do the final reinforcement on this hitch. All right, guys, so I touched everything up here with paint. At this point, all I need is a bolt and a nut, so we're going to call this project complete. The hardware store thing is going to be closed by the time I get there, so I will have to wait till morning to do that, but I'm not going to make you guys wait. We're going to call this one done. I want to tell you how much I appreciate you guys watching. Remember, I am not a welder. Do not try to learn from what I did. You know, what's weird is I'm very inconsistent with welding. Like I said, I am not a welder, but I can weld. My welds are strong. They're just not always pretty. But what's weird is I can weld almost perfect one day, and then another day, not so good. And today was one of the not so good days. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't good by any means. I mean, a welder would look at that and laugh, but I know that it's going to do what I need it to do. All right, guys, once again, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like, share with your family and friends, and all that other crap YouTubers are supposed to say. And until the next time I see you, keep those engines running.